The question burning in every fan's mind heading into the Boys series finale is simple. Does Homelander actually die? And if he does, whose hands deliver that final moment of justice? Beyond that, we've got an entire cast of characters whose fates hang in the balance. Butcher, Hughie, Starlight, Kimiko, Ryan, and everyone else who has survived this long, brutal ride. Can the show actually pull off a satisfying ending after everything it's put us through? These are my best predictions based on everything the show has laid out, and I've got some reasoning to back them all up. Before diving into Homelander, let's quickly run through the rest of the cast. Mother's Milk survives. That's a near certainty. The show has invested too much in his relationship with his daughter and his sense of moral grounding to take that away from viewers. He deserves that peaceful reunion, especially after losing Frenchie. Similarly, Hughie and Starlight make it out alive. They're essentially the heart of the entire series, and I think their story continues beyond this finale, likely as part of whatever follows in this universe. My read is that Stan Edgar quietly reassembles Vought from the wreckage, pivoting away from the superhero brand entirely and repositioning the company as a pharmaceutical powerhouse built around Compound V. Hughie and Starlight would be perfectly positioned to keep fighting that battle. Starlight potentially building a genuine superhero team that actually saves lives rather than performing for cameras, and Hughie possibly entering politics or being appointed to some kind of government oversight role. Ashley, surprisingly, I think survives as well, and actually switches sides near the end, contributing in some meaningful way to bringing Homelander down. She's been dancing on the edge of that decision for seasons now.
As for the Shining Light church leader, his time is up. There's no version of this finale where he walks away clean. Kimiko is a more complicated case. Hear me out on this one. There's a real possibility she dies during the final confrontation with Homelander, specifically when she uses her recreated version of Soldier Boy's power-stripping blast. The replication wasn't perfect, and it's possible the process strips her own healing ability in the process, leaving her with a fatal wound she can't recover from. But remember that early conversation in the season about earthworms, the old idea that if you cut one in half, both halves regenerate into separate worms. The show brought that up deliberately, then had Kimiko literally get cut in half shortly after. I think that foreshadowing is intentional. She may die in the finale, but her lower half could regenerate an entirely new top half, meaning a version of Kimiko continues to exist, just without any memory of Season 5's events. She wouldn't know Frenchie is gone, and she'd have to grieve that loss all over again. It's devastating and poetic at the same time. The Deep, frustratingly, probably survives, not because he deserves to, but because the show has treated him as this dark comedic constant, always narrowly avoiding consequences no matter what he does. Sage likely retreats into isolation as well. Marie Morrow from Gen V will almost certainly survive and play a role in the final battle, though I don't think she's the one who ultimately finishes Homelander. Having a character from a separate spin-off series, one that a large portion of the Boys audience hasn't even watched, deliver the killing blow on the show's central villain just wouldn't land the way it needs to. There was a point where I thought the most creative resolution might involve Marie extracting the Compound V from Homelander's blood while Starlight blasts it out, then Marie returning the now clean blood, effectively stripping him of his powers without killing him. It's still possible, but with Kimiko's Soldier Boy ability now in play, that's likely the primary mechanism the writers are going with.
Now, Homelander himself. The default assumption has always been that he has to die, that the only satisfying conclusion to this story is his death. But this season has been quietly planting seeds that suggest otherwise. For a while, I thought they might literally put him on ice the same way they did Soldier Boy. Now, my leaning is that they strip him of his powers entirely and force him to live out the rest of his days as an ordinary, mortal, aging human being. That's actually a more brutal punishment than death for a character who has built his entire identity around being untouchable and divine. This entire season has revolved around him declaring himself a god, so making him into a fragile, mortal nobody who gets sick and grows old and feels pain. That's poetic justice. There's also something to be said for the Jesus parallel the show has been building. Homelander wears the crown of thorns in that promotional image, but his crown had no actual thorns. He got the symbol without the suffering. Making him experience genuine human vulnerability would correct that imbalance in a meaningful way. That said, I've made myself commit to a prediction. Homelander lives. I think Hughie intervenes before the killing blow is delivered, possibly motivated by his growing discomfort with how far everyone has gone in their pursuit of vengeance. Maybe Homelander ends up imprisoned, locked in a cell not unlike the lab he grew up in, which would be a full circle kind of hell for him. Or the world believes he's dead while he's secretly being held somewhere, leaving the door cracked for a potential future story. The thing is, even without his powers, Homelander wouldn't go out like a stoic villain accepting his fate. He'd beg, he'd bargain, he'd hold on to the hope that he might somehow get his abilities back someday. That's who he is at his core, someone terrified of being powerless and insignificant. That's actually a sharp contrast to characters like Soldier Boy and Gunpowder, who actively wanted death once their power was gone.
But here's where I'll contradict myself slightly. If Homelander does die, it has to be Butcher who kills him. No other outcome is acceptable. There's a sequence in the Source comics where Butcher does something absolutely savage to what he believes is Homelander, prying into the skull with a crowbar and holding up a piece in front of the dying body, connecting it to what was done to Becca. It's grotesque and unforgettable. With the finale's promotional material pulling directly from that same White House lawn imagery from the comic, the chances of something close to that happening on screen feel higher than ever. Butcher with a crowbar, Homelander finally afraid. That's the image this show has been building toward for 5 seasons. And what about Butcher after all of that? In the comics, Hughie kills him. The show has spent this season showing Hughie growing increasingly troubled by Butcher's ruthlessness, which mirrors that trajectory. But Hughie killing Butcher feels wrong in a way that's hard to articulate. It undercuts his whole arc this season about being done with the cycle of violence. The only scenario where that might work is if Butcher, after killing Homelander, tries to move forward with wiping out every superpowered person alive, and Hughie has no other option. Even then, it feels like a betrayal of both characters. What I actually want, and what I think the show is building toward, is Butcher dying on his own terms, sacrificially, giving his life to protect Hughie, going out knowing he avenged Becca, with Ryan maybe beside him in that final moment. That's the ending that earns its emotion. Butcher finding something close to peace before the end, rather than just more rage. Because honestly, where does Butcher go if he survives? His entire reason for existing has been this mission. There's no life waiting for him on the other side of it. His story ends here, and the most fitting way for it to end is with meaning.
Ryan, for his part, is not the one who kills Homelander either. He's being positioned as this universe's genuine hero, the real version of what Homelander only pretends to be. Having him kill his own father would undercut that arc and send the wrong message about who he is. Ryan's future is alongside Starlight, Hughie, and MM, actually doing the work of making the world better, rather than just performing for it. Now, before wrapping up the predictions, an interview with the showrunner surfaced that seems to confirm at least one major detail. In discussing the future of Marie Moreau, despite Gen V's cancellation, he mentioned that her story wasn't finished just because, and these are his words, Homelander's dead. He also referenced plans they had for a potential 3rd season of Gen V that would have continued Marie's journey in a world still figuring out what comes after. If that's not a direct confirmation of Homelander's fate, it's pretty close. So maybe I had it wrong, and Homelander does die after all. Whether the showrunner misspoke or casually dropped the biggest spoiler before the finale aired, we'll find out very soon. Drop your own predictions in the comments, and let's see how many of us actually called it right.